on social skills that are needed for friendship building in schools. My name is Dr. Melinda Pierson. I have been at Cal State Fullerton in the Department of Special Education since 2001, and I am the chair of the Department of Special Education actually since around 2007, so I've been a chair for a long time. Before that, I was an assistant professor at Cal Poly Pomona for 3 years. I really focused my research and all of my interest on teacher training, as well as affective characteristics, which means social skills, self-concept, and loneliness, specifically in adolescents with disabilities, mild, moderate disabilities. And my research also focuses on evidence-based best practices in literacy. So these 3 areas are of great interest to me. So this particular webinar is addressing 2 of my research areas, which is teacher training as well as affective characteristics. So we're going to be talking about social skills, which will make a huge difference in their self-concept and hopefully prevent loneliness in our schools. Before I was a professor, I taught for 8 years in 2 different school districts, and I have worked consistently in schools since 1990, which really ages me. I've been doing a lot of consulting, supporting teachers, and conducting research since then. And I have just loved being in the schools. I miss it on a daily basis, but I'm in schools at least once a week, most of the time twice a week. So these topics are really important to me. I have 3 children, 2 in college. Well, one's in grad school, one's in college, 1 in high school. And I also have 1 host daughter who is in college, and she's from Rwanda. And I've had 15 different foster children who have been all my guinea pigs as I work on friendship building and social skills among all of my children and in my own life. So I want to talk to you today really about these implications for students with and without disabilities across the elementary grade levels. I do a lot of research on adolescents, but this one, we're going to focus today on elementary grade levels. And I think one reason why that's really important is if we can work really well and make it an important part of our day with our elementary students, then by the time they become adolescents, hopefully they have some embedded, some natural social skills that they're able to use to maintain friendships in some really difficult scenarios that they would be facing as they grow up into junior high and to high school, which are of course the harder years socially. So when we look at children with disabilities, there are patterns that are seen throughout all of the literature and through all of the schools that I have spent my life in. And we know in general that children with disabilities, and we're talking about elementary children now, have an overall lower social status as compared to those without disabilities. And that's pretty evident in the recess time and in classrooms, which teachers will tell us. One of the reasons would be their negative behaviors. Another reason is that it's difficult if you have a learning disability. A lot of times that creates issues with your social skills. So learning disabilities and social skills deficits do go hand in hand, which then lends to the lower social status. So overall, the research also shows us that children with disabilities are perceived more negatively than their peers without disabilities. And this is across the board by their peers as well as by teachers and paraeducators in the classrooms. A lot of times this is also the inclusion teachers, the general ed teachers, that they have a harder time thinking positively about children with disabilities. Of course, from a teacher perspective, it's because they're going to take more time. They're going to need more differentiation and support. And that would be one reason, but also because the behaviors and the difficulty getting along with other children make it difficult for teachers. So that might be another reason. Children with learning disabilities, behavior disorders, and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder are poorly accepted in general education classrooms and are rejected by peers without disabilities. This is pretty common, again, based on behaviors. Also, I wanted to say, notice that I'm using children first and the disability second. So you can see that I'm saying children with learning disabilities or children with whatever the disability is versus saying the learning disabled child. That would not be as kind. We want to make sure that we're acknowledging them as children first and not their deficit first. So something for you to think about as we move along today and always. Let me see if I can move this up a little bit. Sorry about that. Okay, so children with significant learning problems are more likely to choose socially unacceptable behaviors in social situations than children without significant learning problems. They're also less able to solve social problems. They struggle more with different scenarios that are presented to them. They are less able to predict consequences of their actions, of their behaviors. So they don't understand fully what they have done and why they have pushed people away based on a specific behavior. They're also less able to adjust to the reactions of their listeners in discussions or conversations. So that would tell me that their listening skills need to be worked on a regular basis, which is actually a pretty easy skill to teach in a classroom. It just has to be a focus of the teacher of that classroom. Also, children with significant learning problems are more likely to be rejected or isolated from their peers. And we said this earlier. And so when you think about these things, these social skills, and the difficulty that they have navigating the social world, this directly relates to their self-concept, because if they're rejected or isolated by their peers, then of course they're going to realize that and not be feeling as good about themselves. And that will lead to loneliness and mental health issues as time goes on. So social skills and teaching friendship building skills are really, really important to our children with learning problems, because again, we want to help them to fit in and to be less rejected in social situations and hopefully completely included. Children with significant learning problems are often the object of negative and unsupportive statements, criticisms, and warnings from teachers. So one of the reasons that I'm doing this webinar, of course, is to help teachers see the importance of teaching social skills and friendship building skills to our students, but also as teachers, the impact that we have on lives and the possibility that we have to change this negative social status of our children with significant learning problems. The way we treat them, the way we talk to them, the way we act towards them matters. And I really, really encourage you to be thinking about the way that you talk to your students and the way that you treat them, because it really makes a huge difference in the way that other kids will model your behaviors. So also, children with significant learning problems are less adaptable to new social situations. They're more likely to be judged negatively by adults after informal observation. They end up receiving less affection from parents and siblings. Can you see why these lack of skills, of friendship building skills, social skills, ends up creating severe self-concept issues, problems with relationships, even with family members, and not just friends, but it extends out into their family and their communities. So these skills are really important to teach. And then our children with significant learning problems have less tolerance for frustration and failure. So they're so quick to realize that they messed up and they don't accept it as well from themselves. So you've seen possibly in observations or in your teaching experiences, children that know that they messed up and they made a mistake and they are not forgiving of themselves, which then leads to more severe behavior responses, which then leads to more teachers in the classroom and general ed students not wanting to be near them in any situation, but especially in a social situation. So you can see how all of these factors play into their social status on the playground, in a classroom, at a school. So what are 4 key social skills? And if we were face-to-face in a workshop, which would actually be really fun, I would love that. If you think about what are 4 key social skills in your life that are important, and obviously these are up on the screen, and research really points to these 4 areas, but when I think about my own life and my own family and my own friends and my children and their friendships, I really notice that these 4 key social skills, if we can teach these skills, then of course there's a lot that goes into each one of them, but if we can teach these skills, then we're really going to make a difference in children with disabilities and their ability to have better friendships and more likely to be included. So those 4 key social skills are the ability to join or enter a group, the ability to establish and maintain friendships. Oh, there's so much that goes into that one, isn't there? The ability to resolve conflicts, that one too. The ability to tune in to social skills. So your awareness, your self-reflection, your ability to read the situation around you. And you all know there are people in your own lives, friends or family members, that don't even have disabilities, that struggle with self-awareness, with self-reflection, with the ability to realize what's actually going on around them and to be able to know how to respond appropriately with an appropriate social skill in a certain situation. So to be honest, these are 4 key social skills that could be used for any child in any setting, in any classroom, anywhere. So I think if you're listening to this and you may end up being a gen ed teacher, you may be a special ed teacher, you may be someone who's working at a YMCA or in a church group, these are skills that can be taught to any child, and this would greatly improve their ability to maintain friendships. So how do we really define the behavior that needs to be taught? So social skills are really behaviors, aren't they? So they're clearly defined behaviors that has a sequence of steps that involves thinking, feeling, and doing. And we're going to talk about these specific social skills in a minute, and you'll understand what I mean by that. So social skills are behaviors that involve thinking, feeling, and doing. And teachers and students really must know exactly what responses are expected and when the skills have been performed. So no one in the world interprets similar statements in exactly the same way. So if you tell 2 children, be nice to each other, it might mean something different to each of those children. And this depends, of course, on the way they were raised, how their mother or their father or their caregiver helped them to get along with other children in the home or other children in a community setting. So you really need to specifically define and practice your directions and the specific social skill that you want that child to be practicing. And that would be to speak kindly and use courtesy words. So the kids, if you're saying these words, would need to know what courtesy words might mean. And you would have to give specific example of kind words so they know exactly what you mean. Instead of saying, be nice to each other, talk kindly. Well, what does that mean exactly? So whatever that means to you in your classroom and how that applies to specific situations needs to be defined by you before you train your children on a specific social skill that you're trying to teach. So we're going to look at a current investigation that I have going on that's looking at elementary school aged children's perceptions of friendship skills. So our research team did a study looking at first grade, third grade, and fifth grade with and without mild disabilities. And they were surveyed on their perceptions of friendship skills. And this was actually really fun for us and really fun for the children. They enjoyed answering some questions because everybody wants to be a good friend. And everyone's excited to tell you why they choose their friends and how come this particular group are the people that they wanted, that they're hanging out with. So our key research question was, what are the 4 most important skills that make someone a good friend? And we surveyed this particular sample. We surveyed 96 boys and 75 girls. And you can see the breakdown here. So it was pretty evenly distributed amongst the grades. So first grade had 31 boys and 29 girls. Third grade had 29 boys and 28 girls. Fifth grade had 36 boys and 28 girls. So this is a pretty decent sample size where we can find out really what they thought. And they were alone when they were surveyed, so that there wasn't any pressure to put an additional skill that someone else had put. So the survey asked the students to choose the top 4 skills that they felt were necessary in establishing and maintaining friendships. So they could choose one of the following: being a good listener, following playground rules, saying hello, sharing things, someone who doesn't fight with people, following classroom rules, saying nice things, making good choices, or saying I'm sorry. So these skills were the choices that the children had, and these were pulled out of several different research studies that we used with our literature review when we were analyzing a lot of different research that's been done on friendship skills. So these were the common ones as thematically taken from the different research articles that we used. And when we looked at the first grade responses, the first grade boys said, says nice things, says I'm sorry, follows classroom rules, and then they also said good listener and does not fight with people. So they chose 5 that came out evenly, that were up on the highest part of their list. But the number one thing that they all wanted was someone who says nice things. So I thought that was interesting. First grade girls was similar, very similar in the top 2. Says nice thing, says I'm sorry. So isn't that interesting? So I'm going to challenge you right now. In your relationship, in your own life, are you saying nice things? Are you saying you're sorry to your partner, to your children, to your friends? So maybe this crosses the board and not just first graders, huh? I'm just being funny with you. In a webinar, it's hard to get any responses when I'm just kind of speaking to myself. But these are important skills that we all need to be using and thinking about. First grade girls also ranked shares things as an important factor that they wanted to bring up. And then they, in equal ratings, said someone who's a good listener, says hello when they see me, and also makes good choices. So those were what was important to first grade girls. Obviously, all of these skills are important, but it's interesting the way that the different grades and genders rank these factors. Okay, the third grade boys, let's shift to these responses. They said their number one thing was makes good choices. Then they said being a good listener, and then saying I'm sorry. Third grade girls saying nice things, sharing things, does not fight with people, and says I'm sorry. Okay, fifth grade participants said, the boys said makes good choices, says nice things, shares things, says hello when he or she sees me. The fifth grade girls said says nice things, makes good choices, shares things, and is a good listener. I think it's really interesting that across the grades, the students thought it was important for people to say hello when they see you. It must be an important thing to be greeted. So when we think about the factors and the things that the students said, the social skills that really need to be taught would be making sure that our kids are greeting each other, that they're learning how to be friendly, that they're introducing themselves, that they're being good listeners, that they're joining a conversation and starting a conversation. So basically making conversation. And you know as well as I do that this is a really important skill for adults as well. You don't really want to hang out with people on a weekend if they're not going to be good conversationalists, or if they're not going to be a good listener to you, if they're not going to start a conversation, tell an interesting story, share something about themselves. My oldest daughter is at Xavier University for graduate school, and she's brand new back in the Midwest, and she was in Oregon for college for 4 years, and now she's back in Cincinnati. She doesn't know one person as far as friends go. We do have some family there, but she doesn't know any friends at all. And she went out to lunch with a girl who's in her cohort, her graduate school cohort. And this girl was from Atlanta, and she was looking forward to getting to know somebody from a different state that wasn't from Cincinnati. And this girl, when she had lunch with her, did not ask her a single question about herself. She sat and talked about herself the entire time and showed no interest at all in listening to my daughter or in asking her any questions about herself or her day or her background or her time in college in Oregon, or just different questions that you would ask to show your curiosity or to show your interest in being friends. And so my daughter, who of course has extraordinary social skills because it's my research area, just kidding, I'm trying really hard to help my kids with their social skills, and it's not easy all the time. But one thing she does know is how to make conversation and how to be a good listener in conversation with friends. And so she was not excited to go out with this girl again to lunch or to meet her wherever. So I don't think that friendship is going to go. And that was something that is an adult skill that can be taught even to adults, right? So it's common, not just with kids, but I think it's a great skill to teach our elementary school students, and then they can carry it as their lives are continuing on. More social skills to be taught would be communicating feelings. This is hard for my youngest daughter, is to really be able to share what she's really thinking. She's good at writing, but it's harder for her to speak it. And so we're working on this right now. She just started 9th grade. And so it's something that I'm working on with her, is being able to name her feelings, show some emotion in those feelings, and actually I think that draws people closer to you if they know the way you're feeling. Naming your feelings, naming others' feelings, actually understanding if somebody's sad and you behaved in a way that contributed to that sadness. Sending messages. How do we send messages? Are we approachable? Are we intimidating? How are we encouraging our friends to talk to us if there's a problem? And then controlling our temper. Obviously, especially in children with disabilities, if they're not able to control their temper, kids will not want to be friends with them and not want to be near them, definitely not share anything with them. So communicating feelings overall is a really important social skill that needs to be taught. Expressing oneself. This is similar to our communicating our feelings. So making positive self-statements, making positive statements to others, telling people that they're doing a good job, cheering for other people, being happy for other people when they achieve something, even if you didn't achieve it, is teaching children to be happy for somebody and to cheer for them. Again, expressing feelings, speaking kindly, and using courtesy words. So those would be kind words that help people to feel good, and saying please and saying thank you. And also speaking assertively, which means being honest and speaking up when you're upset and making sure to cheer people on when they deserve those extra kudos. Some more skills that need to be taught would be cooperating with peers. So obviously respecting others' property, sharing materials. We heard from the children that sharing things was important to them. Accepting individual differences. So again, this goes back as a teacher in the way that you treat students that are a little bit different. Maybe they're dirty. Maybe they're kids that are behaving poorly. But as a teacher, you have the opportunity to be a role model and to help your students learn that they need to learn to accept individual differences. And this is so hard. This is so difficult for kids, but it's something that needs to be taught and something that we can model. Also, joining a group activity. It's so interesting how some people have this naturally. I've never had trouble joining a group activity. My two younger kids have no issues joining group activities, but my older daughter's quieter, and it was harder for her to get herself into a group. And I see this with children with disabilities in general ed classrooms as well, is trying to join a group can be difficult. Also, mediating group rules is making sure that they're aware and reflective and understanding about different rules that are going on within a classroom. So as a teacher, you can help that by making sure that that's clear to students. Offering and giving help is being able to help your peers when you're able to, and give them help, and being willing to collaborate and support others. And then also giving and accepting criticism. This is really important because obviously children with disabilities are going to need a lot of extra help. And so teaching them from a teacher's perspective how to be accepting when there's a peer that's going to prompt you to continue to work, and being able to accept those directions and not view it as something that they shouldn't accept because the extra help is great. Obviously also playing with peers, so taking turns, putting materials away, playing group games, helping others to participate. So inviting other people into your group. I'm working on this a lot with my high schooler right now, is trying to figure out why some people are not included, and how does she have the responsibility as a person on a team to make sure that everyone who's her age is included in that team or in an activity that the team is doing. Following game rules, and then also winning and losing, which can be hard for anyone, right? Nobody wants to lose. And then teaching your students how to respond to aggression and conflict, how to ignore certain things that just aren't going to be productive if you respond, how to get away from someone who's being aggressive, how to ask for help, how to respond defensively and make sure that they're being safe, and then how to negotiate conflicts. And then out of all of these skills, how do you choose what's most important to teach to your students, to the children in your classes? The relevance. So what's really going to be reinforced, and what will children maintain? What can they really do that is going to actually work and stick? And so those skills that will actually be utilized would be the first choice. And then developmental level, it needs to be appropriate for the child's age and ability. And then a student need. So if you have a student who's highly aggressive behaviorally, and that's really creating some difficult situations in a classroom, then that really might need to be focused on first. So you're going to be looking at the relevance of how important that skill is and how likely it is to be reinforced and maintained. Is it appropriate for that particular child? And then how great is the need that the student fix this social skill or this behavior? So teachers will need to alter their reinforcement techniques so that as the children progress and get better and better at using the skill, that greater emphasis is played on the reinforcers and less on just giving them rewards or giving them, extra recess time or a piece of candy or a sticker for being appropriate. We really want them to be glad that they're included in the group. So we want the students to derive pleasure from the behavior, where they realize now they're being included, they now have a friend, they have more people that want to hang out with them because they're being more friendly, and they know how to be a good listener, and they're asking questions, or they know how to share better. So the child who learns to make friendly, appropriate greetings will have positive reinforcements when the greeting is reciprocated. So as they learn to say hello to people, they'll have others responding to them, and that will help them to feel better about their social situation and feel like they have more friends. So here are some really great resources for teaching social emotional learning skills that I've used in some different schools and I've seen used. And actually, social skills programs, there are lots of free ones and lots of ideas you can get just by Googling it. But a couple that I know that are really good, and some of these do cost money, but the ICPS, I Can Problem Solve, and this is for younger students, but it does go up to intermediate grades, and that's a really great one for problem solving. Skill streaming is great. I've used skill streaming all the way up through high school. Also, violence prevention curriculum. This one goes up through early high school. Positive action curriculum. And this actually gives you lessons that can be taught 4 days a week that can be organized into different units. And then there's a Colorado Rethink Anger Management program if you really have someone that has severe anger management issues. And then just a couple more resources. Project Achieve is a great curriculum. The Stop and Think social skills curriculum is for social skills straight out. And then the Center for Effective Collaboration and Practice, they give some great ideas for social skills, which help kids collaborate better in small groups and within a classroom. And then Promoting Alternative Thinking Strategies, PATHS, is also a great curriculum for people in elementary schools to promote self-awareness and other ways of solving problems in a positive way. So we know overall that social skills are going to help our children be successful in school and at home, but we know that they're more likely to be able to please teachers and please the paraeducators if they have appropriate social skills, and they'll have more friends, so they'll act out less. It's important to teach social skills to children at any age. So if you're a high school teacher, this is not impossible. This is something that's very important to still teach. But the earlier that children learn positive interaction skills, the more successful they're going to be in their lives. So I really do encourage you to start teaching this young. And if you are a mom or a dad or a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle, and you have children around you, this is something that can be taught, and it's really important. So something to think about. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey of improving social skills among our students and our children. And I really wish we could be face-to-face. I would love to hear some of your experiences and your thoughts. But until we can be, much luck to you as you implement some fantastic social skills that'll build friendships in our children in the schools. Take care and have a great day.